Tonight on Let It Rip, a controversial tweet and a double down by the new face of the Michigan Republican Party.
When we point to history, somehow that's controversial. I will not tolerate that. I will not apologize for that.
So was the comment comparing gun control to the Holocaust isolated, or is there more to come? The man Christina Caramo beat out for the top job in the state GOP, Matthew DePerno, weighing in on the future of the party. Plus, the bill sparking that comment, a step closer to becoming law. What gun rules could look like in Michigan once they get the governor's signature. Time now to Let It Rip. We will get to our panel in just a second, but let's get you up to speed on this GOP controversy. As gun control bills work their way through Lansing, the state GOP fired off this tweet yesterday with a meme saying before they collected all these wedding rings, they collected all the guns, referring to the Holocaust. Republican Party Chair Christina Caramo standing by that statement at a news conference later in that day.
The Second Amendment exists for defensive purposes. It exists to protect citizens from aspiring tyrants. And any notion that the Michigan Republican Party drawing comparisons between historical events and the Democrats' push to disarm the people of Michigan is somehow offensive or bigoted is flat out dishonest.
That comparison got a lot of blowback almost right away after the tweet got out there, and it led to this fiery exchange at that same news conference. Take a listen.
There's a difference between learning from history and exploiting history and trivializing history. And I want to know, did your group ask any Jews?
Let me ask you this. Do you speak for every Jewish person?
Absolutely not. But
okay, so you speak for yourself.
No, I represent the Federation of Michigan.
You speak for, sir, you speak for yourself. There are plenty of Jewish people who agree with me.
Back here in the studio with us, Matthew DePerno, who is in the running for state GOP chair, Democratic insider and consultant Alexis Wiley, and Aaron Tobin, board member of the Zionist Organization of America, and Fox 2 anchor and attorney Charlie Langton. We thank you all for joining us today. Let's get right to it and let it rip. I want to begin with you, Aaron, because you're the only person on this panel right now who is Jewish. And when you see that tweet with all the rings referring to the Holocaust, and then you see the politicalization of that, talking about modern day gun legislation, that doesn't the least bit offend you?
No, and I lost my grandparents, my aunt, a lot of family in the Holocaust in Lithuania. So it's very personal to me, my family, and the Jewish community. By far, the Republican Jews, and I would say the Orthodox Jewish community votes 80 to 90% Republican. They are not offended by this at all, and they say, how can people these days not understand that those that do not learn history are doomed to repeat history? The Holocaust is not something you put up on a shelf in a glass case and just look at every now and then. We need to learn from it and see that how our rights were eroded and eventually guns were confiscated.
Aaron, but when you take a look at the tweet that came out from the Republican Jewish Council just yesterday, they condemned Christina Caramo on a national stage, saying this was unacceptable, it's disrespectful, and it trivializes this very dark day in history. Do you see where they're coming from?
I see where they can be coming from, but I totally disagree. Everyone I've talked to disagrees. The resounding replies on Facebook disagree.
Of Jews?
Of Jews.
Of Jews
on your Facebook Jewish page? Friends, family, okay. Cousins. I have a lot of cousins that are Democrats. We all love each other and get along, but no, I posted this about 5 or 10 years ago. This is not a new meme.
Sure.
5 days ago, this was posted by the Jews for the Preservation of Gun Rights. So they just saw it and retweeted
Maybe it's a matter of the fire that we're feeling, the ire that we're feeling from so many people who are non-Jewish and Jewish isn't because of necessarily the fact that people are reminding us of history and how it could repeat itself, but perhaps the person who's putting the tweet out. Matt DePerno, this is a woman that you ran against to be the GOP chair. She puts this tweet out, and when you heard Rabbi Lopatin trying to explain his case, she was interrupting him, shouting at him, and not letting him speak. You're not Jewish. You have a problem with that tweet.
I do have a problem with that tweet, and I think a lot of Republicans have a problem with that tweet, Roop. But when we look at history, we got to understand the argument is a false equivalency. To equate what's happening this day, now, to what was happening in the Holocaust when the Nazi Germany exterminated 6 million Jews. And to say, looking back in that time with what the Jewish people were going through, the oppression that they suffered, standing in line for food, no economic development, no way to make money, that somehow they could have put up a defense against the Nazi regime but with cheap pistols and shotguns. Where were they going to get the money to purchase this stuff from? It just takes a look back and says, I don't think she really understands history like she's saying she does. A lot of people are offended by it. Not only did she put out the tweet, but then she doubled down on it. And then she tripled down on it with a news conference where she shouted at people.
But Matt, if this wasn't Christina Caramo, because we know there's animus between the two of you, if this was somebody else who put this tweet out, you would feel exactly the same way? Or is this Christina Caramo just blowing the Republican Party up in Michigan and you have a problem with it?
Of course we have a problem with the fact that she's blowing up the Michigan Republican Party. But this is not a surprise to anyone who's on the inside within the Republican Party. We saw this coming. We know it was coming. She told us exactly who she was on the campaign trail. She actually stated that she wants to transform the Michigan Republican Party into an all-Christian organization. That's offensive to many people, including many Jewish people. She wants to operate the party from a position of exclusion, not inclusion. She's dividing the party, and the party will fail because of this. We will not win elections in 2 years. We can't raise any money right now. People are divided, and what is happening is a complete implosion within the Republican Party.
Alexis, some Democrats are arguing that Christina Caramo is the gift that keeps on giving for Democrats because it's simply giving Democrats the power and the platform to speak some sense. Do you believe that?
You know, I think that's actually kind of, in some ways, short-sighted, right? I think the real thing that's really scary is that there was a whole group of people that voted for her, right? That believe in this, that believe that what she's doing is right. That part is scary. And I think we should be thinking about what impact this has on democracy overall, right? We need to be able to have an intelligent discourse about issues, and we can't have that anymore because you have crazy things like this and then chairs who go and have press conferences and start arguing from the podium. It's absurdity that I think is going to just lead to more chaos.
Charlie, you hear Aaron Tobin, who is a Jew himself, standing in front of us saying, I don't have a problem with the tweet. Who are we to have a problem with the tweet if the person who is of Jewish faith is saying we need to learn from history?
Well, I think, I mean, Aaron, he doesn't have a problem with it. I think it's drawing attention to the Republican Party, but in a negative way. The idea, as I understand it, the chair of a party, the chair of anything, the head of a corporation, should be the person that would unite everybody. I think Matt said it, but I think he's right. And I think that the tweet, I don't know if it's historically correct or not. I think it's and the problem for me is to equate the Holocaust with a gun-controlled debate is just simply wrong on its face anyway. To me, but I don't like it from a chair. That you've got a chair. You've got to respect the chair of the party, and that job as the chair, number one, is to raise money, but number two is to bring the party together. And you can't have controversial tweets like that and expect to bring the party together.
Aaron, does Christina Caramo get that? Does she understand that by doing this type of thing and then doubling down at a news conference, she's not bringing the Republican Party together, and that donors probably don't want to come running in with their money when this is the kind of thing we're covering on the news?
So Christina and I go back many years. She's an Oak Parker. I'm an Oak Parker.
Sure.
She came to ZOA, Zionist Organization of America meetings, things about the Holocaust, things about Israel, things about the Israel-Palestine conflict, years before she got into politics. She's not a Johnny-come-lately to the Jewish community.
Aaron, but I'm redirecting the question again. Back to the question: is she destroying the Republican Party from the inside out?
No, I don't believe she is.
But do you believe that donors will come forth after this?
Absolutely.
And say, I want to give my money?
urge the viewers, donate. If you believe that this is a good message and you're not offended, write a check. You know, the Republicans had a choice between Christina Caramo and DePerno. And who's sitting
but
here?
Aaron,
the phones aren't ringing.
They didn't
I don't hear any phones.
But how many donors have left? If you look at what Christina Caramo is dealing with, she has a fiscal issue and a sociological issue and a political issue all in her hands right now. The fiscal issue is you need money to run candidates. Do you think that she's going to get more money because of this?
I know right now that the Republican Party, it was reported in the news, they were $1 million or $2 million in debt when she took office, and I now they're down to like 100 or 200,000 in debt. Donations are coming in. The people that are against Christina Caramo are mostly the Democrats, and they're saying, the Republican Party is a party of old white men. Now there's a strong black lady in charge of the Republican Party, and it's driving the Democrats
Alexis,
nuts.
you're an African-American woman who's a political insider and a consultant. What's going on with that? Because every time someone brings something up about Christina Caramo, the go-to is, no, we have diversity. Look, we have Christina Caramo.
Yeah, I think that the whole thing is just crazy to me. And I think the fact that, you've one person or some people who feel okay. There are a lot of people who are hurt and upset about that tweet. And if we want to actually unite people, you don't do things like that. You don't espouse hate. I don't care if you're black or anything else. I don't care who's standing up there. If you're being hateful and using things like the Holocaust to try to drum up for political reasons, it's disgusting.
Who's she hating? The Germans, the Nazis? Who's she
What
hating?
she's doing is disgusting. And I think the fact that you may feel okay and she may be your friend, but at the same time, there are a lot of people that she's supposed to be representing and also trying to unite us as a state, as a community, and that's not what she's doing.
Matt, let's go to you with that question about the donors. Is this woman going to be able to continue to do the work that she's doing and actually succeed in helping the Michigan GOP?
No, absolutely not. Let's be realistic. There is no money coming into the state party right now. Zero. The large donors want nothing to do with this. They will not give to the state party. They see her as very divisive, unlikable, and someone who ran a terrible SOS campaign.
Why couldn't you guys convince the rest of the party that that would be the case if she was elected?
This is the direction the delegate group wanted to go.
Is she better than you?
Well, listen. No one cares more about the Second Amendment than I do. But there's a better way to message that argument than through a false equivalency of comparing gun legislation to the Holocaust. And what we're seeing right now is the absolute destruction of the Michigan Republican Party. And our state committee better wise up very quickly. And if I was them, they better look at what's going on. They should bring a vote of no confidence immediately, remove her from office, and put someone in place who can actually do the job of raise money, unite the party, bring Republicans
Alexis,
together, run.
But I
We
think
only have
the
a few
point
minutes. Is that the solution?
They will not do that. She was put there by a group of people who believe that she is doing the right thing. Thus, we need to be looking at that, and regular people, common sense, good people need to say, that's not what we stand for, and they're going to make a different choice somewhere else, and it won't be with the Michigan Republican Party.
Matt DePerno, you take a look at that tweet when you first saw it. I want to get your reaction when you first saw that picture, because for me, when I saw that picture, I was repulsed by the fact that there was anything political. When you see a picture, you go, who sent this out? It said Michigan GOP. And you kind of sit back going, I can't believe this. I don't care what the issue is. No one is being marched into an extermination camp because of legislation. That equivalency is in itself disgusting to so many people. How do you tell Christina Caramo that? Will she listen?
No, I don't think you can tell her. I don't think she'll listen. Listen, she doubled down by putting out a press release, standing by the tweet. She tripled down by doing a press conference, and that is destructive to the party. It is not going to get any better than what you're seeing right now. The Democrats love this, and I think the Democrats, quite frankly, should list that tweet on their campaign finance report as an in-kind donation, because that's what's happening right now in Michigan.
Aaron, you're
politics.
That's your job, Alex.
Aaron, you're friends with Christina Caramo. You're both Oak Parkers. You know her. If someone can talk some of what some people are calling sense into her, it could be someone like you. Are you willing to sit down and have a conversation and tell her what you believe? But are you willing to tell her, by looking at the pulse of not just the people on your Facebook page, but all of the people who are watching, and listen to them? Are you willing to have a conversation with her to say this is or isn't working?
I have had the conversation. I'm involved with many Jewish organizations and heavily in the Republican Party in Oakland County, and I can tell you that she has the support of the Republican Party. There will be fundraising. I'm a CPL instructor. I'm all about guns. I've taught probably more Jews in the community than anyone. And I'm happy that Matt DePerno supports the Second Amendment. But there's a little bit of bitterness that he lost out, it seems, what I'm hearing now. And she was elected to do the job. She's only been in there a very short time. Let's give her some time and see what she does. But I think this will be tempered in the future.
Aaron, I appreciate you joining us here today on Let It Rip. We thank you for your time and your perspective. Alexis, as always, good to see you. Matt DePerno, we continue to have conversations with you behind the scenes about what you're working on. Let us know what you plan to do moving forward, and we thank you for your time as usual.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Well, the bills that sparked that tweet are closer to the governor's desk, but will that package actually be effective? What will it look like? And what's the future of gun control in our state? That debate is next on Let It Rip. Back now on Let It Rip, the Republican Party's controversial tweet has dominated headlines the last couple of days, but we wanted to dive deeper into the gun control issue itself, specifically what it'll look like once this package of bills hits the governor's desk. With us tonight, Bill Cusick, who owns Action Impact. He says that some of these laws aren't going to quite do the trick. And State Senator Stephanie Chang joins us as well. She, of course, is advocating for so many of those bills and hoping that that does pass. And our own anchor attorney, Charlie Langton, who never sleeps, perhaps has a bed in the back somewhere because he's always working. We thank you, of course, always for joining us. Let's begin with the senator. Where are we when it comes to this most recent package of bills for those who haven't been able to keep track? It's been a lot.
For sure. Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
I'm really excited because, I've been in the legislature for 8 years. We've introduced a number of gun violence prevention bills many times, but it wasn't until this year that we finally are able to really move things forward. And so I'm really excited that today the Senate actually sent both the universal background checks bills as well as the safe storage bills, which both sets of bills will help to save Michiganders' lives. Both of those sets of bills are on their way to the governor's desk, and we're working really hard on our extreme risk protection order bills as well. So we're making huge amounts of progress after hours of compelling testimony from gun violence survivors themselves and many others who are just so thankful that we're finally taking action.
Bill, so many young people at Michigan State University are not far but a stone throws away from the state capitol, and they're heading over there just 5.5 weeks after this terrible shooting happened. When you talk to a parent who's watching this right now, or a student like Troy Forbush, who was actually speaking today saying, hey, I was watching all this unfold, I'm a victim of this, and they say we have to march for our lives because no one's looking out for us. These bills would simply make things tougher for those who are bad guys. Why is that a bad thing in your mind?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's a bill that's going to be decided that will have anything to do with the bad guys. First of all, bad guys are bad guys. They commit criminal acts. So none of these three bills will have any impact on any of the violence we're seeing, whether it's from guns, wherever it's from. None of these bills will touch that. And yet they're kind of being promoted, and people are kind of getting the feeling, well, this is going to save us from active shooter events. That's kind of how it's being promoted, and it's anything but the truth. When you look at active shooters events, none of these events would these have touched. Nothing about East Lansing, nothing about Oxford.
But the argument that some people have is, look, if you have, like, for instance, an experimental cancer treatment out there, and you know that it probably could work in a lot of people, and then the two patients who come forward and saying it didn't work on me, so let's scrap all the plans. At some point, you have to try something. The prescription for safety for these young people, they feel, could be beefed up laws. Why is that an issue? Well, who would that hurt by beefing up those?
You can go to prison for the rest of your life if you kill somebody. Some states you can be executed, and that does not deter these individuals who are looking for fame and who are committing these acts that have America paralyzed in fear. So we don't respond to the threat. We kind of throwing out these bills, and we hope
Senator
maybe
Chang?
Somebody somewhere may get discouraged, but there's no direct action that's being taken. The best thing they're doing is securing their buildings.
Senator Chang, what do you think? I mean, the Extreme Risk Protection Act, I know Florida and Indiana have that. They claim that they've seen some success because of that, right?
We've actually, so extreme risk protection orders, just so folks know exactly what they are, basically it's a tool. It's a tool for family members, loved ones, law enforcement, mental health professionals who talk to a person who's clearly making threats to harm themselves or harm someone else. What we know from states like Connecticut, Indiana, as we know Florida also passed this redder state than Michigan, they passed these laws and they actually saw huge decreases in their suicide rates. So we're talking about huge decreases in suicide. When it comes to the safe storage bills, we had Kim Worthy come up and testify in Lansing, and she talked about just horrific situations in Wayne County that she has seen where a child accessed a gun that was not stored properly in their parents' home and accidentally shot themselves or shot their family members. Those are lives that we
Charlie, you
can't
want to chime in?
save.
Go ahead.
On the safe storage, it's fairly limited, as I understand the legislation. If you have a minor in your home, the bill says you basically have to lock the gun up.
Yep. Common sense.
You don't disagree with that. You don't want minors getting guns, do you, Bill?
No, absolutely not.
So you're
And,
okay
you
with
know,
that part of it?
And we teach this on a daily basis, keep your kids away from your guns, but let's look at the reality of the situation, okay? This all depends on where you live, doesn't it? Are you going to keep your gun locked up when you live in a high crime area? If you're in the suburbs, that's fine.
If you have a minor, though, that's probably a better reason to lock the
We
gun
already have
up.
laws for this. Aren't parents being charged? They are. Every time a child gets a gun, they're being charged.
Prosecutor Worthy had some really great testimony on this very exact thing. She wants to be able to have this law in place so that she has that other tool to be able to charge
But
parents.
Senator Chen,
after the fact.
when you hear people, again, after the fact, talk about this Oxford shooter and the MSU shooter, and we now know that universal background checks, safe storage laws, or extreme right risk protection wouldn't have necessarily stopped these guys. Does that give you reason to pause?
I have no reason to pause. If anything, we've got to keep moving. We've got to keep moving faster.
But is this the right antidote? Is this the right prescription to make them safer?
I absolutely think so, because we know that they work in other states. And when we look at Oxford, if we had safe storage, many folks believe, it's hard, we can't go into the past, right? Of
course not.
But I think that many folks believe that if we had passed a safe storage law prior to Oxford, that we could have potentially prevented that. And with MSU shooting, we know from hearing the stories from his dad, the perpetrator's dad, that he was trying to find help for his son. If we had this tool in place, and I also think about, we had a woman come up and testify in my committee who shared the tragic story of 2 of her 3 children that were killed in a murder-suicide when she had been actively trying to get help for her daughter.
Can I ask, is this the end of the gun bills, or are there more gun bills in the works in your committee?
Well, so there's absolutely more gun bills coming.
So that's I think that's the part. This is the little part. Even people like safe storage and even red flag are a little more controversial, but background checks, okay, but there's more. Is there anything about taking guns away?
Nothing about really taking guns away. I think that very much we have the support of responsible gun owners who understand, let's lock up guns to make sure kids are safe.
Those are the easy ones.
All of these types of things. I have bills that I've worked on for a number of years related to domestic violence. And Kansas has passed this law. This is about making sure that folks who have a misdemeanor domestic violence conviction, that they are added to the felon in possession statute. It's protecting domestic violence.
There were some people who showed up on the state capitol who are gun rights advocates, who actually are defenders of the Second Amendment, and said, we love our guns, we want to be able to protect ourselves, and we support the bills that Senator Chang is talking about. And they didn't come out in a few numbers. There was a large number of people. What do you tell them about these pieces of legislation and why they shouldn't be passed?
It's not the legislation, it's their intent and their representations that this is actually going to stop something. That's
How do we know
offensive.
it's not going to, Bill?
Because we can already look at the laws we have, which are much more strict than these laws are, and they don't work.
But if it
There's
works,
no
if it
deterrent
works
for
in
these
one
shootings.
case, if it works in one case, a universal background check or safe storage, and it prevents a young person from going into a school and shooting up the school, if it prevents one case, isn't this legislation worth it, Bill?
You know what? I'll do anything to save anybody's life. My past has indicated that. But there's a lot better things we can do to prevent these things from occurring to begin with.
Like
I don't
what?
hear
I'd like
any
to hear
talk
that. Yes.
about securing these buildings. So have you got any money going to the schools, to the churches, to the other places where we've seen active shooters events, where you secure that building, then you're going a long way to stop this, but they don't talk
Senator
about that.
Chang,
They're
we
coming
have about
after
30
guns.
seconds. Do you
absolutely
beef up security?
conversations.
Do you beef up security at the schools?
There's absolutely something that we've talked about at the state capitol, but the fact of the matter is we have to also address guns. And so we know that we can save lives through passing this gun violence prevention bills, and we're so grateful for everyone's activism.
We are grateful for both of you coming. We do have more time on the other side of this break with final thoughts after this. Stay with us. Final thoughts, let's get to Bill.
Roop, as you know, I go into these things, I analyze all this stuff, I've studied active shooter events. If I thought for a minute, I'm open-minded, if I thought the legislation would cure something, I'd be all for it. But it's not going to. It's easy because these bills have no consequence. It's easy to say, hey, I don't have a problem with them. because of their own
Senator
consequences.
Chang, 20 seconds.
What I've got to say is that I'm so inspired by the young people who have just continued to raise their voices in support of gun violence prevention, and the courageous family members who have lost loved ones to gun violence. They've shared powerful stories, and we are hearing them, and we are finally taking action.
Senator Chang, thank you for your time. Bill Cusick, always good to see you. Charlie, we're going to give you and the folks out on the streets the final word. This time, though, talking about the possible indictment of former President Trump, which we thought we'd talk about today on Let It Rip, but a lot of other things came about. But here's a look at what you think of that.
Donald Trump.
A great man.
You think former President Donald Trump's going to be arrested?
I hope so.
I think a lot of people dislike him.
What about Stormy Daniels, though? Paying off the stripper Stormy Daniels. Do you think he did it with campaign money?
Well, I think that was Magic Johnson.
Well, there's the Stormy Daniels. There's the documents of Mar-a-Lago. That doesn't look like it's going so well. And, calling for his followers to protest doesn't seem like a very good thing to do for the public either.
Looked like he would want to use, to keep it all under the table, he would use his own private money.
You think all this publicity about these indictments coming out, do you think that's actually going to help him or hurt him running for president?
It'll definitely, I think it'll help him with, because he has his audience.
The liberals and liberal, media, not